So, welcome to our June meeting. Yeah, you're going to need a microphone. Our speakers are shy, apparently, tonight. Yeah. Shayla told me she just needs respite, so she's here to recruit respite. Okay, so we have a panel tonight. We've made some adjustments. JD's not here, so we're going to make up what he does. You guys pretty much know what he does, but he has kiddos that he's at the clinic with tonight, so he won't be joining us, but that's life. So tonight we're kind of going to continue the panel type thing. So Q&A, open for Q&A throughout the event. We'll try to pass the mic around because we do have several people online virtual tonight watching. So that's why you've got great angles. You guys look really, really good, skinny. Yes. So tonight we have a couple in-home, well, just one in-home, just one. Brianna Denning, who used to work on the other side, the dark side, right? From Burleigh County Human Service Zone. And then from the foster care side of the world, we have Shayla from Burleigh County Human Service Zone and Tara from PATH. So we're going to hear a little bit more about what their jobs look like, what they all entail. Maybe give us a glimpse into the other side that we don't interact with them on. Maybe you can help us understand the volumes of paperwork and some of the other things that happen that we just don't know about. And then, of course, we're going to grill you with all kinds of questions, but everybody promises to be nice, I'm pretty sure, except Amber. So welcome, ladies. Thanks for being here. Who wants the mic first? I've heard this is your least favorite thing to do. Can you confirm or deny that? Okay.
I'm Shayla. I've worked at Burleigh County Human Service Zone as a foster care case manager for 3 years, a little over 3 years now. Before that, I was a case manager at Prairie Learning Center for 3 years. Not sure if you guys are familiar with Prairie Learning Center. It was a residential child care facility for teenage boys who were in the custody of Burleigh County or any county in the state or DJS. They'd come there, live there, go to school there, do treatment there. So worked there for 3 years, got familiar with the foster care stuff, decided to work in town. Here we are. I don't know, yep, little over 3 years. 30. That's high. Mm-hmm. Yes. Shh. Okay. Mm-hmm. 0 to 20. So I have 2 kids in the 18 plus program right now. I have babies. I got every age you could think of. So I got some kids at home with parents, some kids in facilities, some kids in foster care. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know like how much you guys know, but so there's 3 different sections of child welfare. Okay, so there's the CPS workers who do the investigations. They get all the reports, they go out, do the investigations and everything. And then there's the in-home workers. So that's what I'm currently doing. I did foster care for 3.5, going on 4 years. Then moved to Minnesota for a little bit, and I came back. I've been doing in-home for almost a year now. So in-home, we get our referrals from CPS. So if there's a report that comes in where there's a lot of concerns about what's going on in the home, and they just feel like more services are needed, but the kids don't need to be removed, then they'll refer it to in-home. So then we get the case and we work closely with the family. We're usually in there a few times a month, trying to get services set up for the kids, for the parents. It's a lot of addiction stuff, a lot of domestic violence, just that kind of stuff. Our cases are supposed to be like 3 to 6 months long. We're supposed to be in there. Then we try to get out. I've had cases since I got here that are still working with the families. Sometimes the cases go to foster care if the situations don't improve. Then we might have to do a removal on the kiddos, and then foster care workers come in. Sorry. Oh, okay. Got it. Well, I'm supposed to be an in-home worker, but I have had, well, foster care was down like 3 workers for a period of time. So because I did it, I think they gave me some foster care cases. So I think I have an 18+ kid, I have a teenage girl, and then a little girl in Fargo with her grandmother. They're all in foster care. Then the rest of the families I work with are in-home. So. I think Sharon said, see, this is why I wish Sharon was here. I think she told somebody like 100, yeah. So that's families. So we count our caseload by family and in-home, and foster care counts by kid.
I want to say like 180. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I was gonna say like 120 or something like that. Wow, that's crazy. Sure.
So what do we expect, or what's a good quality of a foster parent? Definitely communication. It's really, reunification works so much easier when the foster parents are involved with the bio family, working as a support to the parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles. That's kind of stuff is really helpful with reunification. I guess, I mean, just keeping that communication open. If you're struggling with something, like, just let us know. It's okay. We want to help. I guess going to their appointments is really helpful. I know therapists like when foster parents are there to give updates and see how things are going in the home, and if they're working on things in the home and how that's going. That's really helpful. Anything you can think of?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just piggyback off of like the working with the bio parents. I think it encourages the biological parents a lot when the foster parents are willing to like not act like they're this bad person, and just like supporting them. I know we've had foster parents who, I mean, you guys have an opportunity to have a really close relationship with these bio parents, where I think sometimes they look at us like, well, you're the one that took our kids and you're the one that wants us to do all of these things. So I think in some respects, like, foster parents can just have a different type of relationship with these bio parents. And I mean, we've had foster parents who have like gone as far as like the bio parents are calling them, asking them to take them to treatment, or asking them if they know a place where they can stay or something like that. So I mean, I think that really helps support these parents and like give them motivation to keep going. Because I think sometimes when kids come into foster care, parents just give up and they just kind of, they lose all their motivation. But
And then I think it's hard, but the more communication kids have with their parents, whether it's phone calls, letters, video chats, face-to-face visits, parents going to appointments, that's what keeps parents going. It's the longer they go without seeing their kids, the less motivated they are. Those parents that see their kids multiple times a week, talk to them multiple times a week, are more likely to succeed in that reunification than not, most of the time. Yes, so question is, after visits, during visits, kids are told promises that aren't going to probably happen, or they talk about the future, and then that makes them react. And the only thing that we can do is either, I mean, we're having those conversations with those parents. We're going over the visitation agreements, be in there to coach those visits, to teach them. We do a lot of coaching in visits. We have a visitation coordinator who sits in there, parent aids us, case managers, to help guide how the visit goes, redirect things, promises being made, inappropriate talk, things like that. Kind of what we got. We have a visitation agreement that parents sign with us. It's very generic, and so we can make it however we want to if we really need to, but it just talks about being on time, being appropriate, not being under the influence, don't bring, I think not bring, actually, yeah, on the visitation agreement, it says not to bring snacks and gifts. We do, unless approval first. Yes. Yes. That hopefully is being monitored by the visitation coordinator if they're supervised. If they're unsupervised, then that's just the conversation that needs to be had ahead of time. And good question. To the case manager, and then they can talk to the parent. And I mean, depends though. Maybe you have a really good relationship with that parent, and you can say, hey, you know, when he came home from his visit, he was really sick and said he had a lot of candy. Like, next time, can we have watermelon or, you know, something, a banana instead? Like, it depends on your relationship with that parent too, but can definitely contact the case manager.
I'll grab it. Okay, so my name is Tara Helfrich, and I work with PATH. And so PATH is a non-custodial agency. And so in the in the state of North Dakota, three agencies, I should say, can take custody of a kid, and that's a human service zone. So like Burleigh County Human Service Zone, a tribe, or Division of Juvenile Services, or DJS for short. So we don't actually take custody of the kids that we work with. We license foster homes and provide additional case management to the custodial agency. And so our biggest program, and probably the one we're most maybe known for lack of better words, is treatment foster care. So that's TFC essentially. So the requirements for youth that are in our treatment foster care homes is they have to have a mental health diagnosis. And so those are, our most typical is, PTSD or ADHD. We have kids with autism. They're usually like your harder to place kids, right? They have more behaviors typically, and require that extra level of case management. We also have a regular foster care program, which is comparable, I would say, to the county. I should backtrack too. In treatment foster care, we only license our homes for 2. So we'll only put 2 kids in your home unless they come in a sibling group. And there's, you can prove that you can handle more than 2 treatment level kids. We can make a special amendments to your license and license you for more than that. Our regular homes kind of depend typical or comparable to county, that it would be kind of dependent on your bed space and the amount of kids you're willing to take. We also have what's called SFC, specialized foster care, and that's actually the unit that I coordinate, and that is a branch of treatment foster care, and it's to serve youth in custody of DJS. And so if you're not familiar with DJS, that's the Division of Juvenile Services. They take custody of youth who are adjudicated delinquent. And so, in your court orders, you're adjudicated deprived or adjudicated delinquent. And so these are youth that have racked up some what would be adult felony charges. Most of those kids are coming from a residential facility of some kind, whether it's YCC or DBGR up in Minot, and they need that step down level of care prior to going home. That's how the program was built, is like a stepping stone. That doesn't always happen. Sometimes these kids are coming from biological homes that just can't either, provide them the structure that they need, or they can't provide the support that they need, and they need that higher level of care. We also have a newer program called intensive foster care, and these are your really, really tough kids, essentially. They're the ones that could be in residential, but maybe not quite qualifying. There's, a handful of different requirements in order to be licensed in intensive home. We're piloting it. We only have 2 or 3 in the entire state at this point. Under PATH, we also have, so the Chafee Independent Living Program, which I know Nick was here was it last month he was here? Okay, so he's employed by PATH. We kind of I don't know how to say it. We don't run that because that's a federal program, but we house it kind of, for lack of better words, in the state. So he's employed with PATH and has, the Chafee program. And so with that, it's kind of under PATH's umbrella. Let's see here. I've been working with PATH for just under 3 years and been a treatment foster care worker. So like I said, 90% of my caseload is SFC, specialized foster care, which is, the youngest that DJS typically will take custody is 12. On average, I'd say 16 is probably the most common age that I have. But we can work with kids up to 21, just like the county can. So we can place them in 18 plus, and they can be in a treatment level foster home and just be what we call 18 plus step down. So we're not moving them to a different foster home at 18. So we have a much lower caseload, much lower. I feel bad hearing you have 30. So our average caseload is 8 to 10. And so typically, I don't know many of us that have less than 8, but it'll range between 10. There are times when you hit 14 or so, but aside from that, we try not to go above that, because the idea behind it is that we provide extra case management, and these are more intense treatment level kids. We do work a lot with the county. Yep. So we get referrals. What's unique, I guess, about PATH in the sense of foster care is that we don't do emergency placements. And so the county has to be able to do it, right? They pull a kid and, or, they remove and they have to have somewhere for that child to go. Within PATH, we don't do emergency placements. And so there is a referral process. And the custodian will fill out what we call universal applications, same thing they would do if they wanted them in residential. And then we have a kind of a chain of commands that filters through those UAs, call them UAs, universal applications, and we match kids to our foster homes. And so the idea behind it is to match them. So sometimes they match well and sometimes they don't. I mean, we just don't know. Yes. Sorry. I'm sorry. The question or the comment, thank you, was about people licensed, you said with PATH in a different county. So that's interesting because we can go statewide. So like our kids in our Bismarck homes, that are licensed in Bismarck and Mandan in the surrounding areas, we try to put priority in local kids, but we'll go statewide. So we could have a youth that's out of Grand Forks County placed in a Bismarck home if the custodian is willing to allow them to be placed in the other side of the state. So I guess I'm not sure, that scenario that surprises me and kind of frustrates me a little bit that we have an open home that we haven't utilized. So, right? And we're located across the state. So PATH is specific to North Dakota, but we're located and we have offices across the state. Obviously the biggest one being Fargo and then Bismarck / Grand Forks, comparable in size. So yeah, we do put priority, but I mean, we have a handful of kids right now that are placed custodially, they're in custody of Spirit Lake tribe, but they're placed here in Bismarck. So if the custodian is willing to, go statewide is kind of how we say it, then we'll look across the state for PATH options. Unfortunately, we have, I think, 80 to 90 kids on our wait list right now to be in a PATH home. It's so those are kids that are either in a residential setting and need a step down level of care, and that custodian really feels like they need a PATH level foster home, or it could be a kid placed in a county home and the custodial agency feels like they need that higher level of care in regards to case management and support from support, I guess, in general. That would probably be how I would explain it. Yeah. So the question was in regards to youth that need to be picked up and need somewhere to go, since we don't do emergency placements. If they're not placed in a PATH home, we don't actually provide that case management. So unfortunately, if it was a kid that was placed within PATH and let's say ran away, right, and they had to be placed outside of that foster home, we have different resources we look into. Typically, if we can get them keep them in a home setting, we'll look at respite, another PATH home, where you might need to tap into like youth works or if it's age appropriate in places like that. But in regards to a youth that was removed or not in PATH care, we don't do any of that case management. So it'd have to be the custodial agency that provides that transportation and unfortunately has to find that emergency placement. Yeah, absolutely. So the question was about matching homes or kids with homes. So we get that universal application, which is a state form that the custodian fills out. And from that, yeah, you guys probably know that a little bit better too, but it gives basic demographics. It talks about their placement history. It has kind of like a checklist about certain behaviors or things that they struggle with. Preferably, if there's a diagnosis, that's already listed in there, so we know ahead of time. There might be things about school, if possible, in there. The more information, the better, or else we end up having to ask a whole bunch of questions. you know, I like to think we kind of know our families pretty good and know what works and what doesn't work. So typically like certain age ranges, we know right off the bat, you know, that family doesn't take any, you know, those littler ones, or, you know, they're not comfortable with teenagers, I know right away. But we'll look through those and kind of match that family. So for me, with the SFC program, the way it's built is it's to serve DJS kids. So I only look at DJS referrals for for those specific families. I have some treatment level homes as well that, you know, we can go county or tribal placement or even DJS essentially in those treatment homes. And so I know certain things that are just not going to work in that family. So for example, like if that kid can't be placed with animals, I'm not going to put a kid in there that with a family who has like 4 cats, right? That would put them in a bad place. That would put the kid in a bad place. Kids, you know, certain families are not comfortable with certain behaviors or certain struggles. And we ask that when we do our licensing. We have a checklist, which I believe the county does too, not completely sure. That like what you're comfortable with, what you're not comfortable with. But then, you know, from there, it just kind of comes to conversation. So I could say, you know, I have this referral and I described the kid and I said, I know you're not comfortable with this, but do you think if we safety planned with this or we put this in place, this would be something you would be willing to look at? And we do pre-placement visits. And so in an ideal situation, that would be a kid coming to a foster home for like a weekend and then going back to where they were. So whether that's a county home or a residential setting, and then the team pulls together and they say, okay, is this a good fit? Like, does that kid want to stay here? What does that kind of look like? And make sure we kind of have all of our ducks in a row. In regards to like requirements, like I said, they have to have that mental health diagnosis. And there are certain ones that we take and that we don't take, but most everything is pretty qualifies for PATH services. So treatment level, you're probably not going to place a kid younger than 3. And that's kind of stretching it sometimes. That's probably the youngest I've seen. But our regular program is where you'll have like you're younger than 3 or, you know, up to that teenage age. Yeah. So are you asking for PATH to put priority at? So the question is, you know, there was a scenario with a youth that was very much a treatment level kid and didn't get into a PATH home. Unfortunately, that is the reality at times with just the lack of homes that we have. Like I said, when I say priority, like we obviously try to put priority in those local kids in for the Bismarck area. However, if we don't have a home that can maintain, or a home that can is comfortable with that age, or has older kids that can't handle, couldn't be with someone of that age, then unfortunately that doesn't happen. And I don't know that scenario if there was a referral. If there's no referral, then we don't know that kid exists and can't even get the ball rolling with conversations with our families. Yep, so the question was to describe how long a placement happens within PATH after a universal application is submitted. So let's say that the universal app was submitted and the supervisor, it goes to that supervisor in that area, and then that supervisor staffs it with her staff. Typically, you know, our supervisors kind of know what we have for openings, but they send it, you know, across the office in case, you know, maybe they didn't think of something that one of us did. So we get those universal applications, and let's say that was, you know, I had seen one and I was like, this is probably a really good fit for this family. They have an opening. They're ready for first placement, a second placement, kind of how that goes. It can happen as fast as a couple days, or it can take, you know, a couple of weeks. That would say would probably be like the most average. I think the fastest I've placed is like 3 days, but if there's an opening, that's always the biggest thing. Like if I've matched them with a family, it goes pretty fast, depending on how ready that family is too. But also there's a couple of those things that we require. Like I said, that diagnosis has to come from someone who can diagnose. And so someone with that credentials behind their name. Sometimes doctors, like a primary is willing to do it. Sometimes they have to get them into a psychiatrist. Most of the time, the kids that we serve have diagnoses already. They've been in residential, they've been in, you know, a handful of different homes prior to that referral coming into PATH. And so that universal, or excuse me, that diagnosis is already there. And then from there, you know, we have to get them into a health tracks appointment, and which is like a well child check. But aside from that, those are kind of the two big kickers that gets us into that we need to have before we can place. I don't know if that answered your question. Okay. Yeah.
YouthWorks has a couple different programs. Oh, question is about YouthWorks and how their programs work and how long kids can stay there. So YouthWorks has a couple different programs. Typically, we can place in their attendant care. If they're placed in attendant care, they typically are charged with some kind of citation by law enforcement, runaway, then they can go into attendant care. It's a very short time. You know, yeah, it's only a few days that they can stay in there for that. There is a shelter care option. We don't typically use the shelter care very often. That can maybe be a little bit longer, but YouthWorks is a very short program. They don't provide any type of treatment at YouthWorks. It's just a place for them to stay when they have nowhere to go or they get cited. And it takes a lot of time to get kids into QRTPs.
And YouthWorks,
That's a QRTP is a qualified residential childcare. That, so like your DBGRs, your Minot, your home or in Minot, Fargo, home on the range, that kind of stuff.
and YouthWorks only has one bed that Burley County can place in too. So, because a lot of parents can place at YouthWorks and stuff too. They can take placements from, or kids from wherever. So we only have one bed that we can use. It's hard because YouthWorks is pretty much the only option that we have. Because like DJS, they have the option of YCC. That's a locked facility, kind of. But like we don't have anything like that. We don't have any sort of locked facilities. Even the QRTPs, they're not locked. So it's tough. I mean, I get it. Like, it's not fair. They're hard kids and stuff, and our hands are kind of tied too. I think it's don't like quote me on this, but I think it's a payment thing with the state. I don't know for sure though. It's, yeah, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, safe bed used to be an option for us. It was something that the counties could tap into, DJS could use, PATH could use, and it was essentially a contract through the state. And then there was an agency that like essentially housed that safe bed. And YouthWorks used to house that, but their contract recently ended within the last, I think, like 6 months or so, and they don't have safe bed anymore. Yeah, we can use their shelter if you have the right pull and they have an opening, but it's a first come first serve basis. So you could say like, I'm planning on placing this kid at YouthWorks, that's our plan. And then, you know, you have a day and you're going to do it within 12 hours, they could fill those beds up. And then those kids that take that priority if they're not physically there, unfortunately. And yeah, DJS has, YCC kind of. So they do. It is a resource. They have decreased their capacity over the last couple of years, and that is to understandably so. You know, has to be a pretty high level of need in order to place them in a correctional setting. And they can use YCC for like detention if a kid is placed in detention by law enforcement too. So. But yes, we are lacking a lot of that. That would be wonderful, a bridge to be able to get us over into residential. But unfortunately, that's just not something that we have. Would be awesome though. It'd be a really neat thing.
I slept at the ER Sunday night because there was nowhere for the kid to go. So it would be nice. I think it's a state thing. I don't know. Don't quote me on that either.
I think it's a state thing. It's a federal thing. You know, they have to have funding to pay for it. There has to be an agency willing to house it and run it and hire staff. You know, especially if it's a residential, you got to staff it 24/7. And unfortunately, we just kind of over the years have lost a lot of that resources. So that's, though the need has not decreased, if anything, it's likely increased. I think, you know, I can only relate to like my PATH foster parents. They'll say, you know, as a whole, kids have gotten tougher, you know, they're for an array of different things, but that's probably likely in your guys' scenario too, is, you know, kids are tough. Okay, so the question was why kids are tougher. I don't know. I think there's like a handful of things. I think like societal speaking, there's generational trauma is a huge thing that I think it's maybe under noticed a little bit, but also you know, I think as a whole, our kids are growing up in a really tough society, though they have a lot. There's a lot of pressure that, you know, the suicide rates across the country have like skyrocketed over the last handful of years. It's not uncommon for our youth to struggle with that, which is very sad. And really, really hard when you're sitting, like I said, you know, like Shayla said, when you're sitting in the ER, you know, whether or not it is, and waiting for that psych bed to open. That's another thing we lack across the state is pediatric psych beds. So we'll have a kid that'll come in from, you know, into Sanford and Bismarck, and we're waiting 24 plus hours in the ER for a bed to open up in Grand Forks. And so I don't think that answers your question, but I think life is just harder. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Just to piggyback off of that, there are no open psych beds in North Dakota for a child right now. They have to go, as of Sunday or Monday, they would have to go out of state somehow, some way. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that's probably the South Dakota custodians deal. I mean, if they don't take South Dakota Medicaid here or wherever the child needs to go, then it's not going to get paid. I mean, that's
So yeah, so we have, I can only, like I said, I can speak for PATH. We don't do emergency placements. And so if we have a referral from the South Dakota side of Standing Rock, that's going to hold up that placement. They need to have North Dakota Medicaid in order for funding to go through. Like Brianna said, that would be that custodian will be a South Dakota worker. And so if they want them placed in the state of North Dakota, they have to convert their Medicaid to North Dakota. Unfortunately, they don't have reciprocity. And so even though the tribe overlaps in North Dakota and South Dakota, that is a huge barrier, especially because, as a whole, Standing Rock struggles with the amount of foster parents that they have. And then, having to cross state lines is a struggle as well. So yeah, unfortunately, if they were placed, I would say they should have had North Dakota Medicaid right away. But that's easier said than done when you're sleeping at the office with kids because you don't have anywhere for them to go. However, then you run into a payment issue because the North Dakota won't pay it. Insurance is fun. It's our favorite thing, probably.
as soon as they are in foster care, it's covered by Medicaid, foster care Medicaid. It covers it. So, I mean, they might have to back pay or something, but they should be covered as soon as we take custody. Yeah. I mean, if there's issues or something, yeah.
Don't sign anything saying you're financially responsible. Let us sign that on behalf of Burleigh County.
Yeah, so we don't sign either. PATH won't sign. We don't take financial responsibility at all. So that's something we tell our foster parents too. Like, when in doubt, don't sign anything. Don't sign parental guardian on the line. We just want to make sure that we take that. When I say we, I mean like the custodial agency takes that on and signs off on that stuff, and gets permission and grants permission. And we strongly encourage our foster parents to don't even sign anything.
I mean, I think just foster parents understanding that we don't just have like your kid that we're working with. We've got like 30 kids that we have to do everything that we're doing for this kid. We've got 30 or 29 more that we're doing that for. And so, I mean, we're drowning all the time. And we like appreciate you guys so much because we couldn't do this without you, obviously. And you guys are we have like amazing foster parents in Burleigh County. But I think, yeah, just remembering that we have a lot of other things going on and kids going on, and like if something comes up, like you have a kid run, that's your whole day, that might be your whole week that you're doing that. And so if you don't get to signing something for payment reimbursement, which I know it's that sucks. I know, but like that's your whole week. Like that is what you're doing for the rest of the week if something like that happens. So I mean, I think that kind of stuff, just remembering that stuff is helpful for us. But maybe no, no. Just our job. Our job is reunification. We work with the parents and I mean, obviously the kids too, but our job is to get these kids back with their parents. So that might mean we go and take a parent to open access and we sit with them all morning or all day doing that. We might have to take them all around town and we have parent aides that help us some of this stuff, but sometimes like, I mean, I've had parents that just like connect with you as a caseworker and they don't want a parent aide. And so you end up doing a lot of that stuff. So like we have to, not only do we have, 30 kids that we're working with, but we have then 60 parents that we're working with. And we have to, if we don't know where the parent is, we have to try and find them. Like we are like relative search and like parent locating is like huge. And we get our butts reamed in court if we aren't trying to do those things. So, I mean, as far as paperwork goes, like it might be phone calls, it might be emails, it's filling out applications, it's filling out parent locator searches and all of that stuff. I mean, some days that's all I do is that. And then you gotta take a kid to therapy or something, and then you come back and you're documenting that you took a kid to therapy. So, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, so this is like really random, but the other day I was like talking to somebody and they're telling them what I do. And I said, it like finally a light bulb came on in my head. And I was like, my job is to get the parents where they need to be to have their kids back. My job is not to make sure that kid's getting to school. Like that's their parent or foster parents' jobs. Like my job is to help these parents get sober, get a house, get into therapy, get on Medicaid, get into treatment, get into whatever it is they may need, get their ID. I mean, that's really what my job is, because when you're sitting in court, that's what I have to tell the judge what I'm doing. The judge doesn't care that he cares that the kid's going to the doctor, but like in reality of things, the judge wants to hear what I'm doing with the parent. So yes, majority of our time is with parents who just randomly show up after 3 years sometimes. And then that's a lot of work. That's a lot of time, paperwork. I mean, I think you guys are doing it. I think, going to those appointments and making those relationships and being another support for that parent is huge. Yes. What do you mean? She's in prison. Has there been a termination of parental rights court proceeding? Then, I mean,
So I found this out a few years ago. A TPR can be reversed, but it's really hard and multiple people have to agree to it. The parents have to agree, the kid has to agree, the state has to be in agreement with it. So probably not. She's probably not gonna get them back, but
Yeah, I can. So I think because PATH doesn't take custody, we have less of a relationship, I think, with the bio parents as a whole. Our agency is working more towards kind of inserting ourselves a little bit more in that, but we're not, taking them to their, their treatment. We're not, linking their services. typically our focus is on those kids and getting them linked up to stuff. I know, I have a youth right now who has OT 2 times a week, PT 2 times a week. He's got therapy. I mean, that's a lot of appointments, and it's a lot of linkage and it's a lot of communication. So that's usually where we come in with a lot of that extra case management. We help a lot with transportation, but like what Shayla said about like getting kids to school, we'll help if we absolutely can. If there's a pinch and there's something that's going on, that's kind of what we're there for, but that's not like our primary responsibility. Documentation is like social work 101. I mean, like,
Document it, it didn't happen.
yeah, like everything has to be accounted for. We have a high level of, we have to be in communication with our foster parents at least every single week. And so I have to document and have conversations. If I have a foster parent that's got 3 kids, I better be having conversations about every single one of those kids with that foster parent every single week. And that's path though. Like I said, we have a lower caseload, so we are a bit more involved when it comes to those constant communications. I spend a decent chunk of time with my kids. On Friday, I took a girl to work because she forgot she had to work. Well, I had time, I ran out there and went and got her. That's not always the ability for a custodian to be able to do with their high levels of cases, and that they're working with those bio parents. Our regular program that tends to have our littler kids, I think there's an increase of interaction with bio parents. Unfortunately, with our treatment level kids, majority of those kids have been in foster care for a really pretty long chunk of time. A lot of them are, the parents' rights are terminated, and they're working with ASK, or they're close to aging out and they might talk to their parents, but really they want to age out of foster care. They want to do SIL. They want to, the supervised independent living program that Nick talked about. And so there is a little bit of a decrease. We do have a family support program, which I always forget about. And that's a program where we license a foster home to be a support for a family member who that child has not been removed. And so there's a couple different qualifications for it, but that caseworker, those family, they're going to have a lot of communication with that parent. We've also done it for, a kid who's gone home and that parent wants that formal support, and that foster parent's willing to do that program with them and be like almost like a mentor. They do respite for them. They help them with all sorts of needs. If you can do it informally, cool. If you want the program, that's one thing too. That's, another something that we provide. But I think from my role, I guess it's a lot more, I have the ability because I have a lower caseload with the expectation that these kids have higher needs. And so my expectation on me is to be way more involved to help that custodian. We're like a bonus kind of, to kind of, you place them in path. They already have a path worker. If there's an emergency at school, you're hoping that school is calling that foster parent, then they're calling that path worker. And then we're notifying custodian, hey, Susie got out of school to suspension, and this is what we're doing. And we got this kind of lined up for them. In regards to like licensing is a little bit different. It's just a little bit more intensive, and we require, what does the state require? 13 hours? 12 hours of education. We require 18, and then we require share and support hours. So we have a higher level of training, mandatory trainings, and then just like general trainings for our foster parents. That would be kind of one of the biggest differences. I kind of went on a rampage there. Sorry, I kind of rambled. Yeah, there's a couple different, like I said, the kids are going to be, it's the expectation if they're in treatment level and that county's paying that treatment level rate, and they're paying that higher rate, for both the per diem for the foster parents, but also the PATH as an agency, it's an expectation that that child is truly treatment level, or else it really isn't necessary. And then we have conversations and we move kids. Sometimes there will be a kid that'll be placed in regular, like a 5-year-old, and then that foster parent who's a regular licensed foster parent is saying, this kid is not regular, they're treatment level, this is all their things that they need. And that caseworker is saying, yeah, I agree with you. They're going to the county and they're saying, this is a treatment level kid, and we really feel like this kid needs to be moved into the other program. Sometimes those foster parents are willing to change their license to treatment, and sometimes we try to transfer them internally. That's always priority. If we have an internal kid, we want to keep them within PATH, keep them in, within the agency. Was that your question? Okay, I couldn't remember it now. I'm like rambling and then I'm like, wait, I didn't even answer it.
So with in-home, we can, even though the kids are placed at home with their parents, we can do respite. We have to get approval from the state, and then we could place them with one of you guys for like a long weekend or something if the parents need a break. Or like I had a mom recently who had to go turn herself in and watch burn, I think it was, for a couple days, and she got it figured out. But I was going to use respite for those kids. Yes. So sometimes we might be calling you to do respite care, which is helpful. Right. So I know Corey Peterson mentioned like mentoring. That's not a program that we have right now, like Path does. Like they have this program. We don't have anything in place, but like if I had my kids go to Amber for respite and Amber took them back to the foster or to the bio mom, and she brought them some food and stuff with or something, and like they made a connection and you guys wanted to keep that, like that's awesome. And I know like some of you guys, the kids that you guys are taking care of, you guys do that when you are working on reunification and stuff, and that's awesome. I think ideally, yeah, if we could connect you guys to these kids and these families before they come into foster care, that would be really cool. That's just not a program that we have, and I think the state is trying to do something like that. And I know in most states, not North Dakota, but most states, like in-home is much bigger than foster care. Like when I was in Minnesota, I had one family that I worked with where the kids were actually in a foster home that wasn't their family. So I think like we're trying to get there, like we're trying to get it so that we have, right now we have 8 foster care workers and 4 in-home workers. Ideally that would be switched. Like we would have 8 in-home workers trying to keep these kids at home, and then those kids that have to be removed, then obviously we have a few foster care workers. So I think that's the goal and we're trying to get there, but it's gonna take time. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right.
I just real quick, if you guys have the opportunity to be part of court proceedings, do it. It is really informative for you. I think it's good to hear from like the judge of what he's asking of us. I mean, for example, I have 4 kids in Williston. Well, I can't do weekly visits with their mom in Bismarck, but that wasn't good enough for him. So, it's just really good. I mean, I was surprised, but I mean, it's really good you never know what's going to come out of the judge's mouth, what they're asking of us. So if you have the opportunity, which you do have the right to be in court as a foster parent, don't get me wrong, you could get to court and that parent might be like, no, she can't be in here, I hate her. But for the most part, I've never had that happen in any of my experiences. So you should be getting invited to court. If you aren't, you can ask your case manager. But it is interesting, and I think it's good for everybody to be on that team.
And I think at some point you should see if you can get an ICWA worker to come and speak to you guys, because I think that's a whole other level of stuff that we have to, active efforts are huge. So that would be really interesting, I think, if you guys could have somebody come and talk to you. Okay.
Yeah, thank you guys for being here tonight. Appreciate you sharing. July is a month we do not have a meeting. So no meeting next month in July. I think we are going to try to organize like a park play date or something just for the opportunity to network and do something fun, but way less formal than this. So we do have a date reserved. Does anybody remember it? Yes. Yes, so the second week in Tuesday in August for those online will be the annual super slide picnic. Everyone needs to pay your membership dues event. I think that's when everyone pays their membership dues, right? At that event? That's usually how it, yeah. It's $20. We feed you pizza monthly. Yeah. Yes, the beginning of the year or the super slide event. I think those are the two times. Yeah, we take attendance every night. And Leslie R, I don't know. This is so confusing. She makes sure that the different agencies get the information. So yeah, she's passing that directly along to JD, and I can't remember anybody else's names. Yes. Yeah. Cash or check are our only options. And Crystal over here would love to help you with that. Okay, thank you guys all for being here. Your children are ready. They did so great. Less screaming than last time. So thanks everyone.